Hi, thank you very much for being here. I'm Jarvis Siddle, and I'm here to talk about feature importance in basketball. Which stats contribute the most wins to teams? Again, thank you, Dr. Philpott, for your flexibility. I really appreciate you. We just got internet set up here, and I'm recording this first thing. Um, all right. Well, over time, the game has evolved drastically. It started when the league started. Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell were dominating with size, just completely overpowering other players. Then the game kind of transitioned, and the most dominant player became Kareem, who had the unblockable or unguardable skyhook. Then his teammate Magic really took over the league with insane passing. Bird became one of the greatest shooters of all time and traded wins with Magic. Then into the 90s, Jordan managed to take over with being the best defender and offensive player at all times. Shaq and Kobe really defined 2000s basketball by being dominant within the arc. Between mid range floaters and rim pressure, they were unstoppable. Then the game became a little more analytical as Steph really pulled the league behind the arc and showed everybody that three pointers were the most important shot in basketball. These days, the game is really diversified. You have Jokic, who's a passing big, which has never really been seen before. Luka, who's dominating the heliocentric style of play. Giannis as one of the greatest run and dunk people of all time. Wemby as the greatest defender we may ever see. And Shea really embodying the Jordan style shooting guard that just dominates on both ends of the floor. These players play nothing like each other, and it really is a testament to how diverse the game is and shows that GMs and coaches have a really hard job when trying to determine what to optimize when building their roster. You need, so I'm here to tell them what they need to focus on when looking into these things. As far as prior research goes, Goal and Jong, as well as Kabar Kappa, looked into attempts, really at 3 point attempts. Go and Jung found that no matter how many 3 point attempts you make, or how many 3 point attempts, uh, you make, the more shots you put up, the more likely you are to win. Their graph is just perfectly sloped upwards. It had no sign of trailing off when they stopped their research. Um, the more 3 point shots you put up, the more likely you are to win, and that's pretty undeniable. However, Kabar Kappa showed that honestly attempts mattered even more than makes. Because of the way that basketball is played, guarding shooters is really hard and you have to come out of the paint, which frees up the space in between for your offensive rebounders and your rim pressure in bigs to have a lot of space, as well as your cutters to make their way inside. So just attempting threes and drawing their defenders outside is important, even if you're not making them. And then Sika and RD looked into which factors were the most important for predicting wins across the season, rather than trying to find which factors were most impactful to games that were already played. And those they included point based metrics, which I removed. I don't believe that they were very helpful for my research and muddied my data. They also looked into strength of schedule, which I did not. I removed teams entirely from the equation and only looked at the games from both sides of the ball. Um, cool. The data itself was across 5 seasons, 2018 and then 2021 through 2024. I removed 19 and 20 for being affected by the pandemic. They really were warped and a little bit skewed because of the nature of pandemic basketball. Um, Volume stats were also left out since there was so much research already about them. I wanted to try and isolate efficiency. This wound up being maybe the biggest weakness of my data set and kind of maybe left some stats out to dry as volume really matters in the context of basketball, but that is something for future researchers to undertake. The data set is 15 features large. We'll get into that in the next slide. And then the split was 80-20. Pretty normal. The data itself contained Dean Oliver's four factors framework for for both offensive and defensive metrics. That includes effective field goal percentage, which is an aggregate stat, um, including all different kinds of shots. 3-pointers have a little bit more weight, um, but it is a very commonly used and widely regarded metric. Turnovers per 100 possessions, offensive rebounds, and free throw rate from both sides of the ball. And then shot location was also included, basically just efficiency based on where the player shot the shot from. The rim, shots at the rim are within 4 feet. Short mid range is within 14 feet. Long mid range is 14 to the 3-point line. Corner threes are from the corner because it's a little shorter than a non corner three. And then win or lose was encoded as 1 and 0 for the models to understand a little bit better. And over time, wins were removed entirely. They were just converted to regular wins or losses because overtime games didn't really make a difference for my data. Um, at the end of the day, the game really is about a bucket. I looked at a correlation matrix as the key source of EDA for this project, and the correlation matrix really did show that EFG was by far the most effective stat at predicting whether or not somebody would win a game. The it was exactly even between offensive and defensive efficiency, which is really interesting as basketball minds typically believe that defense is more important than offense. You need a good defense to win games, no matter what. Whereas in a good offense, no matter how good your offense is, you may still not win games if your defense is too bad. Turnovers, rebounds, and free throws matter, but they were significantly less important. It really was scoring efficiency. And then if the models do work, both of them will be by far and away the most impactful. Um, However, there were a couple of data weaknesses, like the exclusion of volume. Corner threes and long mid range shots are kind of sporadic. The number of them that are attempted per game by each individual team can really vary. And so it can have big swings in efficiency numbers that are problematic for the data and can lead to skewed information. Um, I used two models, a random forest classifier and a logistic regression model. This was because of the results of the model. I had to try out a couple of different things, and these two I landed on because of the difference in their predictions. The logistic regression model wound up being the most accurate, whereas the random forest classifier was the one that was the most in line with modern basketball thinking. And I think that they're important. It's important to show them both to show why the random forest modifier or classifier is accurate despite it having lower accuracy. All right. The both models did quite well, mind you. The random forest was only 7 points below the logistic regression model, but that difference was big enough that I felt compelled to include the just logistic regression model, even though I don't think that its results, despite predicting well, are accurate. Yep. Um, as far as feature importance go, here's where we see the real difference between the models. The logistic regression model has effective field goal percentage from offensive and defensive stats um, pretty much exactly equal, which is in line with the correlation matrix, but is not really in line with basketball theory. Um, Whereas the random forest classifier has a more traditional outlook on offensive versus defensive efficiency, with defensive efficiency being 1.5 times as important as offensive efficiency. The second thing that really kind of stands out is how they classify all 3-point percentage. It's a really interesting split here where all 3-pointers made is the third most important stat from the random forest classifier and the least important stat by the logistic regression model. And this is really where I looked at the logistic regression model and decided that it was not fully accurate. Effective. 3-point percentage should be important by all anyone who watches basketball or knows anything about basketball will tell you that the 3-point shot is the most important shot. And so the logistical regression model seen it as the least important shot, even below corner and all and non-corner threes, is very odd. Um, and then that'll be shown here. The random forest classifier, I believe, is probably correct. 3-point shots made are really important, and it gives you an advantage over another team because you're just actively scoring more points than they are. And so I think that it really is odd that it was ranked 15th. Um, as for defense over offense, this is kind of shown with this NBA season. The top three teams are the top three defenses. And while all five of the top teams are in the top 10 of uh, offense, it really is the defensive mastermind teams that trend towards the top. Detroit, San Antonio, and OKC have been absolutely dominant from the defensive side of the ball all year, and it shows. They have the highest win percentage for a reason, and holding their opponents to basically to much lower efficiency than they typically would have is the leading contributor to that. Takeaways slash the 2024 Boston Celtics. The reasons, the things that I would take away if I were a GM or a coach is that I should be focusing on defense. Defense is the most important thing. There are coaches out here and GMs who are trying to get offensive minded players to um, put people in seats because it's more fun to watch a flashy offense. But a good defense is how you win games. If your goal is winning championships, if your goal is seeding high in the regular season, then a good defense should be your number one priority. The next priority should be efficient shooting, though. You should be able to make some shots. You don't need the best offense in the league to win a championship. What you need is a fantastic defense and efficient shooting. Turning over the ball with inefficient shooting is the quickest way to lose a basketball game. The four factors are also important. You should have a well-rounded team. If you can't rebound at all, you're going to struggle. If you can't um, make free throws, you're going to struggle. But if you have a great defense and a efficient offense, you're going to win games. And that's where the 2024 Boston Celtics come into this. They perfectly exemplify what I'm talking about here. They had one of the best defenses and one of the best offenses in the league that year by just having efficient 3-point shooting where they were just chucking them up with more attempts than almost any other team in NBA history and a fantastic defense that allowed them to continue to do so. And this combination led them to win a significant portion of their regular season games and go on to win the championship. And while that is obviously the ideal, not every team can make that happen. Not every team can just get better at everything, especially with 3-point shooting and defense. Those take culture and time and specific players. Really, what matters is fit. As long as you're filling holes on your team, you're more likely to win games. The Houston Rockets is a perfect example of this. They had a fantastic defense this year, one of the top tier defenses, and they have for the last couple of years. And their entire offense was based around Kevin Durant and bad shooters, and then offensive rebounding from Steven Adams. He really was a superpower for them, but he wound up getting hurt, and their offense fell apart really fast after that. And what this shows is that it's important to look at your team and see where your holes are and try and fill them. If you can fill them with efficient shooting and defense, you'll be more likely to win games. But filling those holes is important. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I'd have time for questions if there's anybody here.